Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Namofsky. Today, we are discussing the rising household debt in Canada. Laurie, before we went to break, I was talking about compounded interest. Can you just please take a couple of minutes or whatever it is to explain it? Because there's a whole new generation out there that doesn't understand it. And they think if they just put it on their credit card and just pay the minimum, they're going to be okay.
Well, there's a couple things that people need to be wary of, and we talk about compound interest. But let's take an example. I think it's always good to have an example. So let's say you go out and you buy something for $1,000. Let's call it an even thousand, and you pay $400 off when the balance comes due. You know you're paying more than the minimum balance. You're feeling pretty good about that. Well, guess what? You're being charged interest on $1,000. So keep that in mind when you're using those credit cards. If you're not paying it off in full, you're paying interest on the full amount that is on that balance for that month. The next month comes along, and guess what? You're now paying interest not only on the $1,000 that you originally were paying interest on. If you only pay a little bit off the next month, now you're paying interest on the interest that you're being charged. So if it's 20% interest over, like annualized over a year, let's just say that, for example, break that down, a certain percentage of that interest is going to be charged in that month. The next month comes along and you're going to be charged interest not only on your new purchases, but on the balance that you had before if you're not paying it off, and then interest on the interest that is already being charged. And that's how it compounds over time. And a lot of people will think, oh, but I paid, $785, $1,000. I've done really well. Yes, you have, but you're still being charged interest on that full $1,000. It's a killer. And so many people don't realize that's how the banks are making their money. And that's how you, as a consumer, are really getting yourself into a rut of never getting out of that battle. And then you add that over many, many years. And so that outfit that you bought for $200, you've now paid for it 5 times because you have never paid that balance off in full. And you may only be paying the minimum, thinking that that's all they asked me to pay. I'm paying what they asked. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
You know what's important too? A lot of people don't look at their statements, and for, let's say, $1,000 purchase, on that statement, it says that it will take you almost 8 years to pay it off if you only pay the minimum. So we really need to look at those statements and read them and understand exactly what they are.
Yeah, and look at the fine print too, Liz, because it's not saying in bold letters right beside, your balance and what you have to pay, how long it's going to take you to pay it off. It's usually in the next page in fine print. And, so many, and we talk about young people today, so well educated. We know we've got a very well educated population amongst our younger individuals that are just starting out, graduating from university or college. And the average person doesn't realize that just paying the minimum balance doesn't mean that you're doing the right thing. It just means that you're doing what the bank's asking you to. Always pay it off in full.
And that's so important.
Yeah, it's so important. If you can't, take a look at your financial situation. Put your credit cards away. Do what you need to do to get out of that situation, because what'll happen is you'll have 5 cards eventually with the same problem.
So, Laurie, how has credit reliance changed over the past 40 years?
Well, I'll give you an example, Liz. Back in 1990, the debt to income ratio was for every dollar a Canadian made, they owed 90 cents. Okay, so sound pretty good. You make $1, you only owe 90 cents. Today, for every dollar a Canadian makes, they owe approximately $1.82. So it's doubled. It's actually doubled the amount of outstanding debt that we have. So we become uber reliant, not only on credit cards, but also on, lines of credit. We've been relying on our overdraft. We've been reliant on, we talked about payday loans. We've been relying on continuing to cash in on the equity of our home. So people aren't getting anywhere, and we're really struggling and becoming cash poor as a society. Add interest rate increases on there, and it's a combustible situation.
And I think that one of the problems is we had a whole generation that was living through a low interest rate period. And nobody ever thought that interest rates would start to go up. So they started buying properties and started borrowing money. And all of a sudden now, with interest rates going up, people are realizing that they can't afford the mortgages that they were paying before because they've changed so much. And they can't afford the loans that they have because the interest rates have gone up and they didn't lock in on it. So when we come back, I want to talk to you about, I want to delve in on what are the highest interest rate credit vehicles out there that, we should look out for and maybe stay away from. So don't go away. When we come back, we're going to talk about interest rate credit vehicles.